On November 22, 1963, Air Force One landed at Love Field in Dallas, Texas. President John F. Kennedy and his wife Jacqueline exited the plane and immediately walked toward a fence where a crowd of supporters had gathered, and they spent the next several minutes shaking hands. Governor John Connally and his wife Nellie were already seated in the open-top convertible limousine as the President and the First Lady took their seats behind them. With Secret Service cars ahead of and behind the limousine, and numerous Dallas police motorcycle units flanking them, the motorcade traveled the 10-mile route through downtown Dallas on their way to the Trade Mart, where President Kennedy was scheduled to make a speech. Crowds of well-wishers lined the streets and waved as the limousine drove past them. At 12:30 p.m., the procession turned towards Dealey Plaza. As they passed the school book depository building, gunshots rang out. The president was struck in his neck and head. The limousine rushed directly to Parkland Memorial Hospital, and at 1 o'clock p.m., President John F. Kennedy was pronounced dead. In today's episode, we look into the mysterious circumstances surrounding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago. Vice President Lynden Johnson has left the hospital in Dallas, but we do not know to where he has proceeded. Presumably, he will be taking the oath of office shortly and become the 36th President of the United States.
President Kennedy was hit by 2 bullets while sitting in the back seat of the limousine. Governor Connally, who was seated directly ahead of the president, was struck once. The official version of the story states that a lone gunman fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building. Lee Harvey Oswald had a troubled childhood, being placed in juvenile detention several times for truancy. He was repeatedly kicked out of schools, and at the age of 17, left high school without graduating and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. While in the Marines, Oswald was court-martialed twice and was jailed. Upon his release from active duty in 1959, Lee Harvey Oswald flew to Europe and defected to the Soviet Union, renouncing his American citizenship. Oswald settled in the city of Minsk and married a Russian woman named Marina and fathered a child. In June of 1962, Oswald moved back to the United States, bringing his wife and child with him. The family ended up living in Dallas, Texas. In March of 1963, Oswald purchased a 6.5mm Carcano rifle by mail order for the price of $29.95. On November 22, 1963, Lee Harvey Oswald shot and killed President John F. Kennedy from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building. 45 minutes after the shooting, Oswald shot and killed Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit on a nearby street. He then snuck his way into a movie theater where he was arrested. Oswald was charged with the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, which he denied responsibility for, claiming that he was being made a patsy. 2 days later, Oswald was fatally shot by nightclub owner Jack Ruby in the parking garage of the Dallas Police Department. The incident was broadcast live on network television. Jack Ruby was a nightclub owner in the city of Dallas, Texas. According to the Dallas County Sheriff's Department, Ruby was known to operate illegal gambling, money laundering, and prostitution activities in his nightclub. Jack Ruby was also known to have organized crime connections as well. He was said to have often been seen in the company of Chicago mobster Sam Giancana and had associations with Dallas mob leaders Sam and Joe Campisi. The Campisis were lieutenants of New Orleans crime boss Carlos Marcello, who openly spoke of killing the president. On November 24, 1963, Lee Harvey Oswald was being transferred from Dallas Police Headquarters to the county jail. A crowd of reporters and news cameras had gathered in the underground parking area to cover the prisoner transfer. Amid tight security, Jack Ruby managed to slip into the underground parking lot of the Dallas Police Department. As authorities escorted Oswald to a waiting armored transport vehicle, Ruby stepped out from the crowd of reporters and shot Oswald at point-blank range. Oswald was pronounced dead at 1:07 p.m. On November 29, 1963, just 1 week after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, who was now President of the United States, issued Executive Order No. 11130 to form the President's Commission on the Assassination of President Kennedy, better known as the Warren Commission, to investigate Lee Harvey Oswald's assassination of John F. Kennedy and to investigate Jack Ruby's killing of Oswald to determine if there was a conspiracy involved in the assassination of the president. The Warren Commission came to the conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, firing 3 times at the president from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building, evidenced by 3 empty shell casings found at the scene. They also concluded that Jack Ruby was working alone when he killed Lee Harvey Oswald and that there was no evidence of a conspiracy. Despite these conclusions reached by the Warren Commission, most Americans feel that there was some type of conspiracy and that the government knows much more than what they have revealed. It has long been rumored that organized crime leaders helped Kennedy win the key swing state of Illinois in the 1960 presidential election by urging Union members to vote the Democratic ticket. Once in office, John F. Kennedy appointed his brother Robert as Attorney General of the United States. Robert Kennedy took a tough stance against organized crime and proceeded to aggressively prosecute Mafia leaders, particularly in New York and Chicago. This left the mob leaders feeling betrayed by the Kennedys. Is it possible that the Mafia hired Oswald to assassinate the president and then have Jack Ruby kill Oswald to keep him silent? It was well known that Lyndon Johnson and John F. Kennedy did not see eye to eye. Johnson disagreed with Kennedy's handling of the Cuban Missile Crisis and the president's policies involving the Vietnam War. It was rumored that Johnson was involved in corrupt business dealings. President Kennedy was aware of these allegations and was set to drop Johnson from the 1964 Democratic ticket. On the day before the assassination, Johnson and Kennedy were involved in a heated argument. Russian KGB reports from 1965 stated that, in their opinion, Lyndon Johnson was behind the assassination of President Kennedy. Madeline Brown, who was reportedly a mistress of Lyndon Johnson, said that she attended a party with the vice president the night before the assassination. She claimed that Johnson whispered to her, "After tomorrow, those Kennedys will never embarrass me again. That's no threat, that's a promise." In 1961, Allen Dulles was the director of the CIA. Dulles and President Kennedy were often at odds over CIA operations and policy. Dulles had on several occasions requested permission to assassinate Fidel Castro, to which Kennedy refused. After the botched Bay of Pigs operation in 1961, where the CIA recruited Cuban exiles to invade and retake Cuba, President Kennedy gave serious consideration to disband the CIA. Kennedy slashed the CIA's budget by 25% and made personnel changes which angered Dulles. Dulles also disagreed with Kennedy's plans to withdraw troops from the Vietnam War. Later that year, President Kennedy had Allen Dulles replaced as director of the CIA by John McCone. Lee Harvey Oswald fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building. His first shot missed, hitting the pavement next to the limousine. The second shot struck President Kennedy in the neck. Oswald's third shot struck Kennedy in the back of his head. Governor Connolly was also hit. But where could this shot have come from? To account for this, the Warren Commission stated that the second bullet fired by Oswald, which struck the president's neck, exited out his throat and entered the back of Connolly's shoulder, went through his lung, fractured a rib, exited out his chest, struck his wrist, shattering a bone, and then landed in his thigh. The trajectory that the bullet would have had to make seems rather unlikely. However, some have claimed that repositioning the angles of President Kennedy and Governor Connolly's bodies could have made this possible. Governor Connolly required 4 hours of surgery and eventually recovered from his injuries. While the governor was in surgery, the bullet mysteriously appeared on a gurney which was used to transport the governor to the hospital. Despite causing such severe injuries, the bullet was found to be in relatively pristine condition. Rather unusual due to the fact that bullets tend to deform and sometimes fall apart, especially when they strike bone. It is theorized that the bullet had fallen out of Governor Connolly's leg. Ballistics tests revealed that it had been fired from Oswald's rifle. In a 1966 interview with Life magazine, Governor Connolly stated that there is absolute knowledge, and Nellie's too, that one bullet caused the president's first wound, and that an entirely separate shot struck me. If this is true, then there would have to have been a second shooter involved. The majority of witnesses who were present that day in Dealey Plaza claimed that shots came from 2 directions: the School Book Depository building and from a grassy knoll located in front of the motorcade. Several witnesses claimed to see a puff of smoke from the grassy knoll just after the president was shot. This photo was taken from a car which was waiting on a side street as the presidential motorcade passed. It appears to show a cloud of smoke coming from the grassy knoll area. An audio recording taken from a Dallas Police Motorcycle Unit's open mic was analyzed in 1973. Audio experts have determined that a total of 6 gunshots can be heard on that recording. Analysis of footage of the assassination taken on an 8mm home movie camera by Abraham Zapruder, now famously known as the Zapruder film, does seem to indicate that the fatal headshot did come from the front. Lyndon Johnson had close ties to former CIA Director Allen Dulles. After the assassination of President Kennedy, Johnson appointed Dulles to the Warren Commission. It has since been discovered that the CIA withheld key evidence from the Warren Commission. Shortly after the shooting, 3 men were found in the train yards located directly behind the grassy knoll. These men appeared to be vagrants and were detained by Dallas police. A newspaper photographer snapped this photo of the 3 men, now known as the 3 Tramps. Conspiracy theorists have proposed that the 3 men were CIA operatives identified as Howard Hunt, Frank Sturgis, and David Carswell. Hunt, Sturgis, and Carswell are all CIA operatives, but all 3 deny being the men found at the train yard. Mysteriously, any arrest records of the 3 men have disappeared. The Zapruder film wasn't the only film taken on the day of the assassination. There is said to exist another film taken from a different angle which shows the grassy knoll. People who have viewed this film say that a second shooter can be seen on the grassy knoll accompanied by puffs of smoke. The film was reviewed by the House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1976. The committee concluded that there probably was more than one shooter involved on that day in 1963. The film has since mysteriously disappeared. Cynthia Jackson, who is the granddaughter of the person who shot the film, is suing the U.S. government for return of that film.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. Finally, whether you are citizens of America or citizens of the world, ask of us here the same high standards of strength and sacrifice which we ask of you. With a good conscience, our only sure reward, with history the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the land we love, asking His blessing and His help, but knowing that here on earth, God's work must truly be our own.
President John F. Kennedy was elected to office amidst a world and a nation in great turmoil. The nation was being drawn into the Vietnam conflict, was caught up in the midst of the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and was nearly drawn into World War III due to the Cuban Missile Crisis. Despite all this, President Kennedy instilled a feeling of hope into the hearts of citizens from around the world. President John F. Kennedy may have been assassinated on November 22, 1963, but his message and his dream live on to inspire future generations.